Welcome District 14 Toastmasters to today's speech contest training titled How to Have a Terrific Online Contest. My name is Linda Rogers and I will be your facilitator for today's training. This training is brought to you by the District 14 Speech Contest team for the fiscal year 2022-2023. I am the District Contest Chair. Other members of the team are J.D. Dirkschneider, Laura Olson, Joanne Sheets, Trina Mackey, and Debbie Thompson. We hope that you find this training to be useful and that it answers the questions that you have. Thank you for listening to this module. It is important that we follow the most current rulebook every year when we have our speech contest. This training is based on the rulebook for 2022-2023. If you are watching this training after this time period, then you need to make sure you follow the most current rulebook for your fiscal year. Do not use a rulebook that has expired. Make sure you are using only the most current contest publications. This training covers 10 topics as follows: training scope, in-person versus online formats, resources, online speech contest best practices, pre-contest meetings, an uncomplicated contest example, complicated contest, Zoom tips, communications, and finally, our conclusion. Section 1, training scope. The scope of today's training is to talk about how to hold a speech contest online. I am not going to be talking about speech contest basics, what the roles are, what the forms, the rules, etc. What I am going to talk about is how to hold a speech contest online versus in person. Section 2, in-person versus online formats. When we have a contest in person, we typically come early on the day of the contest. We have our judges and contestant briefings. We fill out the various forms. Communications are easy since everyone is physically present. But when you have an online contest, people have to use technology to participate, have a computer, a tablet, a phone, a Wi-Fi connection. Communicating with others is more complicated because we are not in the same room. Signing forms and returning them is more complicated. Gathering ballots and counting them is more complicated. Did I say that communication is just more complicated? Additional roles are needed, etc. Online contest just require an extra effort, another layer of something that needs to be done. Section 3, resources. When we have a speech contest, we need to make sure we follow the rules in the speech contest rulebook for that fiscal year. When we talk about online contests, there are other documents that are available for our use. One interesting, helpful document came out in March of 2020 from TI. It's called the Online Speech Contest Exception. It's only 2 pages long, but it has a plethora of information in that. Unfortunately, it is not on the TI site anymore, but you can find it using a Google search on some district sites. Another document for online speech contests is called Online Speech Contest Best Practices. It is on the TI website. As of this recording, last year's document was the most current version available. I am going to talk in more detail about this document. Section 4, Online Speech Contest Best Practices. We are now going to step through the Online Speech Contest Best Practices document. This is full of a plethora of information for online contests, and I encourage you to download this document and read it from cover to cover. It is divided into 3 parts: preparation and technology, during your contest, and after the contest. Preparation and technology. First, the contest chair needs to choose the platform and the settings that will be used for the contest. You need to select a platform and settings that will meet your needs. If you are using Zoom as your platform, for instance, will you hold your contest as a meeting or a webinar? Will you have the need for breakout rooms? Do you need to chat with large audiences? Whatever you choose, be sure to test the platform and settings well in advance of your contest. The contest chair and chief judge together will establish processes. They will share platform tutorials with all concerned, create a meeting moderator or technical expert position. If the chat function remains on, someone needs to be designated to monitor the chat. And the team's recommendation is that you keep your chat disabled during the contest. You don't want people chatting with everyone else at large while the contestants are speaking. During the established processes phase, the chief judge and contest chair will also need to decide what to show during the minute of silence. They will need to have backup contest officials in case of connection loss, a process for handling protests, a process for handling technology issues that result in loss of connection. The chief judge is responsible for conducting the judge's briefing. The judge's briefing should be held using the same platform and settings as will be used for the contest. All necessary forms need to be returned before the contest. The judges need to be informed of the process for submitting their ballots. In addition to information shared in a standard judge's briefing, also include the following. The judging criteria needs to adhere to the same items outlined in the judge's guide and ballot. That looking at the camera is considered eye contact. The contestant's audio or video quality is not to be taken into consideration. The judges need to know the plan for responding to technology issues. The judges need to be informed of the contestant speaking area. Guidelines need to be provided for the process in handling protests. Judges and ballot counters should remain anonymous, so they will need to remove photos and rename themselves before the contest starts. The judges need to understand how they can communicate with the chief judge, the contest chair, or the meeting moderator during the contest. Phone numbers should be shared as needed so everyone can communicate as necessary during the contest. The contest chair will also meet with the timers. They will hold a timers briefing using the same platform and settings as will be used for the contest. They should determine what method will be used for signaling timing during the contest. Toastmasters International has virtual timing backgrounds that could be used, but remember the timer should cover their camera lens so we don't see them, we see the timing colors instead. Timers should practice with whatever signaling method is selected. They should also discuss and agree upon and practice a method of signaling when each minute of silence has concluded. The timing procedures should be reviewed and each timer should select their role. Timer 1 is the official timer and reports speech times on the time record sheet to be given to the chief judge. Timer 2 times each speech in order to operate the signaling device, but does not submit the timer record sheet. You should also ensure that timer 2 with a signaling device is visible to the contestants at all times. The contest chair will also conduct a contestants briefing. You need to determine a way to draw for speaking order, get all necessary forms back before the contest, run an eligibility check on each contestant to confirm that they are eligible to compete. If the contest is being recorded, contestants should sign the video release form. You should also cover the process for communication with the chief judge in case the contestants lose connection with the contest or need to lodge a protest. Be sure to confirm speech titles with contestants in advance of the contest. Remind contestants to consider their attire and location, and talk through contest logistics, especially the audio and video test before they begin their speech. Another thing that needs to happen with preparation and technology is to make sure to set the cameras and speaking area. Each contestant stands roughly the same distance from their cameras. Confirm that the contestant's microphone is clearly picking them up from where they are standing. Determine how far contestants can go from side to side and front to back without stepping out of frame. Cameras should be kept at eye level. Lighting should be checked so someone's face is not in shadow. The contestants should practice gestures and movement to stay in frame and also test their audio. Contestants should avoid using a mobile device if possible, and it is recommended that contestants not use virtual backgrounds. Now let's discuss the during your contest portion of the best practices document. To begin with, you want to share expectations of what's going to happen during the contest. Ask all participants to arrive early so they can set up and ensure that they can see and hear. Once contestants have set their speaking area, technology, and lighting, it is recommended that they leave everything in place until after the contest. Contest officials and contestants should have a primary device and a backup device. At the beginning of the contest, provide guidance to everyone attending on how to use the platform. For instance, judges need to keep their webcams off during the entire contest so they remain anonymous. And audience members need to keep their webcams off and their mics muted. You need to have someone assigned to keep the audience muted, just in case. If chat is turned on, define the expectations for use and have someone responsible for monitoring the chat. Confirm that all contestants and contest officials are present before starting the contest. Be sure to share the online speech contest statement with your audience. If you are using a PowerPoint, you could put this on one of your slides. If not, be sure to read it aloud in its entirety. Many of you have already heard this statement. In essence, it says, by attending the event, you agree to the privacy policy of Toastmasters International, as well as the unassociated remote hosting service. There's more to the statement, but you can find it in the best practices document. It is the responsibility of the contest chair to make sure that there are clear cues and transitions. Consider how to transition from the contest chair to each speaker. Introduce each contestant at the appropriate time. Confirm each contestant has working audio and video before the speeches begin. Introduce your speaker in the usual way: name, title, name. The chief judge is responsible for collecting and counting the ballots. The judges submit ballots digitally. Do not submit the scores, just the bottom section of your ballot form. Confirm that each submitted ballot includes the judge's signature, and ballot counters meet with the chief judge to tabulate results. You will also need to conduct interviews and give awards. Interviews are conducted as they would be for an in-person contest, and determine the best method for your contest when announcing results and presenting awards. After the contest, you need to finish the paperwork. Ensure that all contest officials delete digital files that include information about scoring, contest results, or judging notes. File any paperwork that needs to be retained. Finally, send digital certificates or other types of awards to the contestants. Section 5, Pre-Contest Meetings. A successful speech contest requires detailed planning. You will need to have multiple pre-contest meetings with the planning team to get things figured out, and you will need to hold multiple information practice meetings with the contestants and contest officials using your online platform. The information I am going to share with you in this section comes from personal experience. I served as the division director for 2 consecutive years, starting at the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic. During those 2 years as division director, all of our area and division speech contests were held online. By the end of that 2-year period, my team and I had online speech contests down to a science. Here's what we did. In addition to finding people to fill the regular contest roles, contest chair, contest master, chief judge, judges, etc., you need to find people who can work behind the scenes on your online platform. In our case, we were using Zoom, so we needed to find some Zoom masters to work behind the scene. We decided on 4 people. First, we needed someone who would operate the PowerPoint slides and play music at the very beginning and end of our contest. We also needed a spotlight master. This person would spotlight people at appropriate times during the contest. The contest master when introducing contestants, contestants when giving their speeches, etc. We also needed someone to act as our chat, microphone sniper, and entry tech master, who would keep an eye on chat to discourage activity during speeches, who would mute the audio and video on those in our audience who had not done so, and would admit the audience members from the waiting room. We needed a breakout room master also. This person would put people in breakout rooms before the contest to review responsibilities, would put the chief judge and ballot counters in the breakout room to determine winners during the contest, would put the contestants and the contest master in a room at the end of the contest for pictures and a debriefing. If it was a table topics or evaluation contest, the breakout room master would put all contestants and the sergeant at arms in a breakout room at the beginning of the contest, then bring the contestants back one by one when it was their turn to compete. And finally, someone on your team would need to operate as the Zoom Master Coordinator, who would make sure that the Zoom Master team knew what needed to be done. Next, we needed to make sure that the roles were filled by tech-savvy members. Everyone needed to be familiar with basic technology. They needed to have an appropriate device, a computer, a tablet, a phone, and a stable Wi-Fi connection. They also needed to be familiar with the online platform, Zoom in our case, being used for the contest. For instance, asking someone to handle chat will not work if they don't have a computer and are trying to use their phone. Judges must be able to text or email their ballots to the ballot counters and the chief judge. People filling the contest roles must be familiar with basic technology. Finally, we always need to have 2 or 3 individuals who can serve as backups in the event someone doesn't attend, arrives late, or loses connection. It's going to happen. And of course, bonus points if those backup individuals are also qualified to be voting judges. It is critical to have information and practice meetings prior to your contest and to have those using your online platform, Zoom in our case. If we were going to have a contest on Wednesday, October the 12th, I would have our first information briefing on Friday, October the 7th. I would use the same Zoom meeting that we are going to be using for the contest. And at 6 p.m., we would have the chief judge, the voting judges, and the ballot counters come in to the Zoom meeting. They would be placed in a breakout room, and the chief judge would brief the voting judges and the ballot counters. The tie-breaking judge should be briefed separately outside of this meeting. When the briefing is over with, everyone in this breakout room should leave the meeting, because at 6:45, the contest chair, the contest master, the contestants, the timers, the sergeant at arms, and all Zoom masters will be coming in for their briefings. It is important that the voting judges leave directly from their breakout room because the contestants are not to know who they are. At the 6:45 briefing, the contest chair, the contest master, the contestants, the timers, and the sergeant at arms will be put into a breakout room where the contest chair and the contest master will brief everyone. Meanwhile, in the main room, the Zoom masters will be briefed. Once both groups have been briefed, gather everyone in the main room and explain that the next practice will be a dry run, where we will step through the entire contest to practice all the handoffs, the spotlighting, etc. Contestants will not give their speeches at the dry run, but will say something very briefly so handoffs can be practiced. Our next information and dry run session would then be on Sunday, October the 9th, again using the same Zoom account that will be used for the contest. At 4 p.m., we would ask the chief judge, the voting judges, and the ballot counters to come for their briefing, but this would only be for those who could not attend at the first briefing on October the 7th. Again, once this briefing was done, they would leave the meeting directly from that breakout room. And at 4:45 p.m., the contest chair, contest master, contestants, timers, sergeant-at-arms, and all Zoom masters would come back for their dry run. We would start at the top of the contest and step through the entire contest in full so everyone can practice the various handoffs. Contestants, as I said earlier, would not give their speeches, but would say a sentence or two just to practice getting on and off stage. During the dry run, practice starting the contest, passing control from whomever opens the contest to the contest master, from there to the first contestant, back to the contest master, to the second contestant, back to the contest master, to the next contestant, etc. Practice putting the chief judge and several pretend ballot counters in a breakout room to determine the winners. Practice doing contestant interviews, announce the winners, etc., etc. If a table topics or evaluation contest was being held, practice putting all the contestants, except the first, in a breakout room with the sergeant-at-arms, then bringing contestants back one by one to compete. No detail is too small to review during the dry run. Let me repeat that. No detail is too small to review during the dry run. Those of you who participated in the dry runs that I did know that I had no problem stopping us mid-sentence and backing up to make sure that we reviewed it and got it right during the dry run. Then on our contest day, Wednesday, October the 12th, we would have the contest officials and contestants start to log in 45 minutes before the contest starts. With a 6 p.m. contest, they would start to log in at 5:15. At 5:50, the audience would be admitted from the waiting room into the main room. And then at 6 p.m., the contest would start. Section 6, Uncomplicated Contest Example. As I mentioned before, I served as a division director for 2 consecutive years, starting with the COVID-19 pandemic. During that time, all the speech contests I was involved with were held online. In this section, I'm going to walk you through an uncomplicated contest in great detail. First, let's define an uncomplicated contest. This is a contest where everyone shows up. There are no protests, no technical issues, and winners are quickly determined. Before I begin, I want to acknowledge that this section is going to violate the bullet points only approach to preparing PowerPoint slides. However, I think it's important to see the contest details, so you'll have to bear with me. Just before the contest starts, 60 minutes before, someone needs to log into the Zoom account and create 2 breakout rooms, one for the contestants and one for the judges. 45 minutes before the contest starts, everyone else logs in. Your contest chair, the contest master, your judges, your timers, your ballot counters, your contestants, your Zoom masters. They're going to get assigned to the appropriate breakout rooms, and they're going to go over the contest responsibilities and procedures as it applies to them, and then go to the main room when they are done with their briefing again. This is important to get everyone together before the contest starts. I liken it to an orchestra concert. They have their weekly practices, but they do not show up 5 minutes before the concert starts. They come early to tune their instruments, to reconnect with the conductor, to run through a few pieces, the beginnings and the endings of pieces. By the time they walk on stage, they are a group that is in step with one another. And you want the same thing for your contest. The contestants, the timers, and the contest master will be put into a breakout room so they can review what they are supposed to do. It's been 3 or 4 or 5 days since your last walkthrough, and people need a reminder. The judges, the chief judge, and the ballot counters will be put in a separate breakout room, again, to go over what it is that they need to do. It will take a while to get everyone in from the waiting room and into their respective breakout rooms. You will bring some judges in, put them in the judges' room. bring some contestants in, put them in the contestant room, so on and so forth until your waiting room is empty. So be patient. 10 minutes before your contest is due to start, everyone should be back in the main room, having been rebriefed again. Your Zoom masters who is handling the PowerPoint slides will bring up a welcoming slide, start some low background music, and your entry tech master is going to start admitting the audience. You want to have a nice feel in the main room when people come in to be your audience. You want them to feel welcome. You want to set the ambience for it. You want to build excitement. 1 minute before the contest is due to start, you start the recording, if appropriate. And then when it's time to start the contest, the music is stopped and the contest chair is spotlighted. During the contest chair will open the event, welcome the audience, go over the Zoom meeting protocols, review the online speech contest statement regarding privacy, and will review the contest agenda. The contest chair then introduces the contest master. As this is being done, the contest master should be spotlighted. After the contest master has been introduced, the spotlight from the contest chair is removed. At this point, you might have some PowerPoint slides still up, but you will have the contest master spotlighted. The contest master is going to review the contestant speaking order, then ask if the first contestant is ready. The contestant needs to have the video turned on in order to be spotlighted. The contestant is spotlighted, and when the contestant says ready, the contest master confirms that the contestant's audio and video are working. The contest master then introduces the first speaker in the usual format, name, title, title, name, and the spotlight is removed from the contest master. At some contests, the contestants have asked that the timer also be spotlighted, so the timer can easily be found. If this is true for your contest, then the timer should be spotlighted at this point. The timer needs to cover the camera, so just the timing backgrounds are seen. At this point in the contest, your contestant and the timer are both spotlighted. Now, your contest master needs to remember that you cannot show any expression while contestants are giving speeches. So please turn your audio and video off during the contestant's speech. When the contestant is done, the contest master needs to turn audio and video back on. Contest master will be spotlighted. Spotlight is removed from the contestant, and the contestant turns off their video and mutes their audio. At this point, what is spotlighted is your timer and your contest master. The contest master will ask for 1 minute of silence, then ideally turns your audio and video off to avoid distractions. The timer will display green at 1 minute. During the minute of silence, the next contestant turns their audio and video on. At the end of that minute of silence, the contest master turns his audio and video back on and asks if the second contestant is ready. The second contestant is spotlighted. When the contestant says ready, the contest master confirms that the contestant's audio and video are working. At this point, your contest master, your contestant, and your timer are spotlighted. The contest master introduces the second speaker in the usual way, and then the spotlight is removed from the contest master. The contest master, again, should turn the audio and video off for themselves during the second contestant's speech. So at this point, the only two people spotlighted are the second contestant and the timer. When that contestant is done, the contest master turns audio and video back on, is re-spotlighted, the spotlight is removed from the contestant, and the contestant turns off their video and mutes their audio. The contest master will ask for 1 minute of silence, then turns their audio and video off to avoid distractions. The timer displays green at 1 minute. During the minute of silence, the next contestant turns their audio and video on. At the end of that minute of silence, the contest master will ask if the next contestant is ready. This process is repeated as needed until all contestants have given their speeches. After the last contestant, the contest master asks for a final minute of silence while judges finish marking their ballots. During this time, the contest master again turns audio and video off to avoid distractions. The timer displays green at 1 minute. Then the spotlight is removed from the timer because this person does not need to do any more timing for the event. During the 1 minute of silence, the chief judge and ballot counters are moved to the judges' breakout room. The judges will send their completed ballots to those individuals using the agreed upon format, text, email, etc. The chief judge and ballot counters will stay in the breakout room until they have determined the contest winners. Meanwhile, the contest master is interviewing the contestants. The interviews could be done one contestant at a time or done as a group. During the interviews, the contest master and the contestants who are being interviewed are spotlighted. Contestants are interviewed until the winners are determined. When the chief judge and ballot counters have determined the winners, the chief judge informs the contest chair, the contest master, and the spotlight Zoom master, usually via text, regarding who the third, second, and first place winners are. The contest master needs to know so that when it's time to announce winners, he'll have the names. The spotlight master also needs to know, depending upon how you want the spotlight during the announcement process. The contest master will finish the interviews and thanks each contestant for their participation. As the contest master announces the winners, third place, second place, first place, the contestants are spotlighted based on what was decided during the planning process. For instance, if the interviews were done as a group, then all the contestants are already spotlighted and winners could just be announced, or each winner could be spotlighted individually. Personally, when I have seen this done, I thought it worked really well when the contestants were interviewed as a group and they just stayed spotlighted as the winners were announced. The contest master then returns control to the contest chair. And at this point, the contest master comes off the spotlight. All of the contestants are off the spotlight. The contest chair is spotlighted. And this individual thanks everyone for coming, makes a few announcements, and then ends the event. If appropriate, you might want to play some music again while the audience is chatting before exiting the event. But your contest team stays around because we want to do some photos and debriefing. The contestants and the contest master are put into one of the breakout rooms so photos can be taken. And then the contest master will debrief those contestants to receive their feedback about this contest. When done, the contestants leave the meeting directly. They do not go back to the main room, and the contest master returns to the main room. Meanwhile, in the main room, the contest chair is debriefing the contest officials and the Zoom masters, so future speech contests can be improved. At some point, the contest master returns from the breakout room and shares the contestant debriefing feedback. Remember, the contestants are not to know who the judges are. Participation and winning certificates are sent to the contestants. These could be digital or hard copy certificates. There are some other notes I also want to share with you. First, attendees can be admitted from the waiting room anytime during the event except during the speeches. This is analogous to having your sergeant-at-arms waiting by the door to the room for an in-person contest. No one enters the room while the contestants are speaking. Next, the Zoom master needs to monitor the audience audio and video. The audio and video for the audience are to be kept off at all times, so make sure this is happening. If you decided to leave your chat on, it should only be used to send messages to one of the planners. It's recommended that chat be disabled for the event. Those being spotlighted must have their videos on. Otherwise, the person doing the spotlighting cannot find you. When we are talking about a table topics or evaluation contests, we need to remember that these contests require the contestants remain sequestered until it is their turn to compete. Have all except the first contestant placed in a breakout room with the sergeant-at-arms early in the contest, then brought one by one into the main room during the minute of silence after the previous contestant. Section 7, Complicated Contests. Contests can go sideways fairly quickly, and you need to be prepared. What if someone doesn't show up? Have backup individuals who can fill any role at the last minute, even that a voting judge. Maybe a protest is lodged. Do you know what to do? You will need to put the appropriate people in a breakout room to address the protest and let the contest master know what's going on, because the interview process may need to be extended. Maybe someone had technical issues. They lost connection, their computer shut down. Make sure your Zoom masters are cross-trained so they can fill in for one another. And if you're using a PowerPoint deck, have that file on multiple computers. Have a backup contest master. Have more judges than required in case one loses connection and doesn't hear all of the speeches. Determine how things will be handled if a contestant loses connection in the middle of their speech. And what do you do if determining winners takes longer than expected? It's not unheard of during an online contest because it takes more communication to be able to get the proper forms somewhere and to be able to figure out the winners. Does the contest master extend the interview time, or do you take a 10 or 15-minute break? Talk about this possibility and decide what you're going to do if this happens. Section 8, Zoom tips. If you are using Zoom as your online platform, then here are some tips. If possible, use the same Zoom meeting for all meetings related to the contest. By doing it this way, there won't be as much confusion over which link to use when. Also, you will be able to confirm that the meeting settings are accurate. Use the waiting room feature to selectively admit people into the main room. For instance, contestants and judges can be admitted at different times and put in their respective breakout rooms before the contest begins. General audience members are not admitted until all loose ends have been resolved, etc. Finally, set your Zoom meeting parameters so that those logging in have both audio and video turned off. This will help minimize distractions when latecomers are admitted, which should only be done when the contestants are not speaking. Section 9, Communications. It is a lot more difficult to communicate with others during an online speech contest than it is if you are holding the contest in person. So you need to plan in advance how you are going to do this. For instance, you can establish text groups before the contest between the contest chair, contest master, chief judge, and the Zoom masters. This one will definitely be used once the chief judge knows who the winners are, so he can inform the other three. You would establish a text group between the chief judge and the judges in case the judges want to lodge protests. Another one between the chief judge and the ballot counters. Another one between the contest master and the contestants, etc. You will also want to make sure that people can send forms properly during the contest. Practice in the judge's briefing, the judges sending ballots to the ballot counters and the chief judge. Practice sending the tiebreaker judge's ballot to the chief judge. And also make sure the timers can send their forms to the chief judge. Practice, practice, practice. Section 10, Conclusion. Holding an online speech contest requires a different approach than doing it in person. We want to present as professional an event as possible, so attention to detail is critical. Technology can be unpredictable at times. Unusual things can and will happen in spite of our best efforts. But attention to detail will help ensure that our online contest will be as professional as humanly possible. Don't forget to take a look at these documents, which will help you understand speech contest in general and have the best online contest possible. Be on the lookout for these other 2022-2023 contest training videos from District 14. How to have a fabulous contest will cover contest basics, the rules, the roles that need to be filled, the forms that need to be filled out. How to chair and master a fabulous contest, we'll talk about the roles of contest chair and contest master. Contest basics for contestants helps contestants understand what's going to go on during the contest itself. It does not cover how to choose a speech topic, how to write your speech, how to do body language and vocal variety. It's the basics about contests. How to be a law-abiding judge talks about the role of voting judges. And finally, how to be an honorable chief judge discusses the role of chief judge. Check out these other contest training videos from District 14. Thank you for watching today's training module, How to Have a Terrific Online Contest. This module has been brought to you by the District 14 Speech Contest team for the 2022-2023 fiscal year. My name is Linda Rogers, and I have been the facilitator for this training module. One final thought before I close. Have a blast at your online speech contests.